Welcome to the Netma Show, where we discuss news and current events and analyze how those things impact your everyday life. My name is Kellen, and I'll be your host. To kick off this episode, let's start with analyzing how some of the United States' new trade policies may be beginning to start affecting U.S. businesses. And a good example of that is to talk about Harley Davidson, the Milwaukee-based motorcycle manufacturer. The company prides itself on making its bikes in the United States and sells these bikes all over the world. In fact, in 2017, Harley Davidson sold about 40,000 motorcycles in Europe. However, now, due to some of the beginnings of a trade war, if you will, the European Union has imposed a 31% tariff on items such as Harley Davidson motorcycles. Now, this tariff would add approximately $2,200 to the cost of a Harley Davidson in Europe. The company did not want to pass these costs on to their consumers, so it elected to move a production facility to Europe to sell the bikes in Europe to avoid that extra $2,200 per bike manufactured. Now, this could be the start of us seeing some businesses beginning to make changes due to the evolving trade policies that the United States has with some of its more popular trading partners. And I'd be interested to hear what you all think about this. Are you concerned, or is this just a normal business activity? So, for example, Harley is closing a manufacturing plant in Kansas City, Missouri, and shifting some of that production to a facility in Pennsylvania. Also, having international operations isn't necessarily new for the company because it already has production facilities in Australia, Brazil, and it's also developing a plant in Thailand as well. So let me know what you all think. I'd love to hear your opinions and find out where you think this is going to go. And moving on to probably the biggest news action in the past week is around the Supreme Court. And so Justice Anthony Kennedy announced that he is going to retire at the end of July. Now, this is a big deal because Supreme Court justices, the term isn't for 4 years, they're not for 8 years, they're for life. And so when a Supreme Court justice vacates their position, it's up to the President of the United States to then select a nominee. That nominee then must be confirmed by the Senate. Well, now that Justice Kennedy is stepping away, it's up to President Trump to pick his nominee. So the president has gone through about 25 candidates and narrowed it down to 5 and has announced that he's going to pick the front runner on July 9th. Now, this is going to be pretty interesting because if you remember back in 2016, while President Barack Obama was still in office, he opted to nominate Merrick Garland for the empty position left by Justice Anthony Scalia, who passed away while in office. Now, if you remember me saying that the Senate has to confirm this nominee, well, back then the Senate opted not to do so because it was expected that President Obama was going to leave office, and they felt that it was best for the new incoming president to select the justice. Now, this is pretty interesting because usually Supreme Court justices, the person that picks them, that president, and then the Congress that confirms them, they tend to move along party lines. So, for example, if it's a Republican president, it's probably chances that they're going to select a more conservative-leaning Supreme Court justice. And same along the same lines for Congress as well. So that means that President Trump would have selected 2 candidates so far in his first 2 years of office. And in fact, some presidents don't even get the opportunity to select one. So this is going to set the stage for a battle in Congress, as Democrats are now going to say that, wait a minute, this is unfair. When we were attempting to confirm Merrick Garland, you said no. So now that primaries are coming around, this is going to be important for members of the Republican Party. And it'll be interesting to see how this all shakes out. What can the Democrats do to try to prevent having Trump insert a much more conservative-leaning Supreme Court justice, which could impact cases going on for decades. If a justice comes in at the age of 60 and they last another 20 years, just think about how many cases they would have worked on that could steer not only politics in the country, but also the culture as well. So I'm excited to hear what you think about this. Please leave comments down below. want to make sure that I understand where all of you are coming from, and I'm definitely interested in all your opinions. So with that, that's going to wrap up the Nutma Show for this week. I'll catch you next week, and until then,